managing projects via work binders. We appreciate the opportunity to be together today in our continuing investment builder series, and we will be spending the majority of our time working together, looking at what there is in the work binders, looking at a few tips and tricks, looking at a few things that are important functionality, and just trying to provide you with some additional information and hopefully some useful things that you'll be able to use on your firm, will be able to use by your firm. So just a couple of little things before we actually get in today. I will be making the presentation. Paul Piccini's on with us. Paul likes to hide. He doesn't like to have his picture out. So he's a little bit of a man of, international man of mystery. So we can't put Paul's picture up, and not that it's a big deal that my picture's there. The purpose of this session, of these sessions, is to increase your learning about Doc.It products, to learn from best practices from other firms, and to learn how to serve your clients better. Our agenda for today is we will be doing just a little bit of housekeeping. We'll see future topics. What is a work binder? Why use work binders? And then we'll spend the majority of our time on the product demonstration. And then at the end, Paul Piccini is with us, our Director of Research and Development, and he will be available for a Q&A session. Now, your phones are on mute. What that means is it'll just allow for it to be a little bit quieter for us all during the presentation without any background noise. But if you would like to ask a question, and we encourage your questions, there is a question tab on the GoToMeeting panel, and it is, I believe it's just this little question mark there, and it'll open the question panel. You can enter your questions. Paul will be reviewing some of the questions as we go through and answering them, and he will be drawing from those questions for our Q&A session. So we really would appreciate your questions and your input and just different things, and hopefully we'll be able to draw on some of those during our Q&A session. So for future topics, our next topic is on November 19th at 1 p.m. Eastern. It will be on tips and tricks in Suite 4, so it'll just be we'll go through a number of tips, maybe 20, 25 things throughout the suite that we think will be advantaged, things we get as common questions and support, things that we bring to people's attention and go, gee, I didn't know that. So we'll go through a series of tips and tricks, and probably our session in November will be on our December release, or at worst it will be a kind of a tax tune-up that we'll be able to use to ensure that we are getting things going properly for tax season. A few of you have reported some problems with sound. I'm just wondering if things have cleaned up a little bit there. I know Paul is attempting to help you and to look into it. So if you're having a little problems with the sound, we hope that it's gotten a little better. At worst, you may need to log out and log back in, but hopefully that's cleaned up a little bit on the sound. I've moved my headpiece just a little bit closer to my mouth so that we're hopefully a little bit clearer, and we'll proceed. And if problems persist, we'll see what we can do to clean that up a bit. So we get actually into our first part of the presentation, and really, what is a work binder? Well, firstly, it is a container. So it is a container. When I say a container, it's really a set of folders that we will have where all project documents are worked on. So this is where we will, everything that relates to a project that we are going to gather, whether coming from our clients, whether we are creating it ourselves or coming from third-party sources, everything that we receive about a project we will put into this container. We call these work binders. Of the main verbs that we do as accountants, this is where we gather documents and process them while we're working on our project in preparation for the release of our report. So our report may be a financial statement. Our report may be might be a tax return. It could be payroll services that we're providing. They are created from templates. So what happens is we establish templates. We say, great, I want to go work on a personal tax project. I'll go grab the personal tax template. I can create a project in a pre-defined structure that I will use for all of my documents. These work binders have multi-user capability, so multiple people could be working on them at once. And we do have the ability to take off of our servers and put these, we call it mobilize. We will take that binder off of the server. We can have it put on a local computer. If you're going to go work out in the field, go work at a client's, Maybe you're not connecting back to the main servers. You're able to take those out and work on the field. So it is our container that we will use to structure or put all our documents in. And it's a very, very easy system to work with. And for those of you who may be familiar with other binder-type systems or engagement-type systems like FX Engagement or CaseWare, this is a very light system compared to those, but there's a lot of commonalities as to how you work with it, what it's used for, and what you can do with it. So the first thing is, well, why would we use a work binder versus just storing everything in Windows folders? And in theory, and in the past, many of us may have stored project documents in Windows, but we're not saving them into a container. So it's not like in the good old days, in the paper days, we had a paper file. So we had maybe a file folder that we put everything in. That was our container. And in certain types of engagements, we may have even had certain tabs that were put into that folder. They would be similar in the electronic environment to a subfolder. So we give you an electronic container that is full of subfolders where you can put all of your documents in while we are working. We don't really have that. We could create quite a subfolder structure in Windows, but we would probably be recreating that every time we did a project. Versus in a work binder, we can create a template and say, great, I want to use this to go do maybe I do monthly bookkeeping for a client, or I'm going to do a one-off project. I can go grab a template. And when I'm working, I have a consistent structure where how I'm putting my documents away. There's a consistent form of what we will call librarianship. Just like when we're doing a year-end, we have our cash and our receivables and our prepaids. That's librarianship. And inside each of those sections, we'll have various documents. So too, the same thing. We will have a templated structure of folders and subfolders, but there's a consistency when I work. We all have a place when we're working on tax to put our wage documents. We all have a place to put our capital gains documents, whether that might be tax documents that are scanned in, whether that's an Excel spreadsheet, whether that's a Word file. But there is a place, there is good, consistent librarianship. It's also very efficient when reviewing because we're reviewing in something that's consistently laid out. The more consistent something is, the more efficient. There's simple integration to gathering sources. So we gather from things like my inbox, so documents that are scanned or potentially faxes, or we're printing from third-party software. Simple integration to Windows and to Outlook for our emails and to the Doc.It portal. So it's very, very easy for us to gather documents and not waste time gathering, whereas it may not be as easy because we may not have integrated tools to be able to put things where we need them to go in Windows. We could have some efficiency tools, like we have one called the Advanced Forms Recognition, which will scan, organize, and file away for us inside our binder scanned in tax documents. We have the ability to batch publish to the archive, so we can take this whole project, create a fully bookmarked PDF of it, put it away into our archive where it's locked down without having to worry about the security of Windows, without having to worry about the fact that I may not be able to open a file in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. We do something like gift tax returns in the States, and we may need some of those elections to go for years upon years. You can't open Excel spreadsheets from 20 years ago. Software today won't allow it to open. And we just think, oh, I can open everything, and that's not necessarily true. So when we're storing in Windows, we're going to be limited as to how things are stored, and we're going to be limited to how things could be, if things could be opened in the future. We oftentimes only think of 5 years down the road, but you get into 20 years down the road, 15 years down the road, and you may well not be able to open items that you did, even with tools that we have today, because those tools have changed. Also, we can lock down our projects. We can roll forward our projects to have files roll forward into next year. Maybe we've got some key spreadsheets. So there's a lot of things that we can do using a binder system versus storing things in Windows. Now, some of us may also use engagement products like CaseWare or FX Engagement. My purpose here is not to bash them. They're very, very strong tools. What we find from observing most of our clients who use them, they do tend to use them for assurance work, and they do tend in general to not use them for things like small business consulting services, income tax. Maybe we're fighting a tax audit for our client. We're doing tax planning. We see that the majority of our clients do not use the larger systems like CaseWare and FX Engagement for those types of projects. What they will do is they will absolutely, if you have them, they'll use them more often than not for their assurance work. But when it comes to other things, oftentimes we're storing things in Windows, and we just kind of discussed why would I want to use a binder system versus using Windows. Some of the advantage of using our binder system over CaseWare FX Engagement, it's very simple. It's a very nimble document manager. The templates are very, very easy to develop. Oftentimes we can develop a template in 5 minutes to 15 minutes, depending on the complexity, but they're very, very easy to create, and then they can be used and they can be rolled out across multiple clients. We're directly integrated to Doc.It's web portal, so if we want to send something from where we are working to the portal or to get something from the portal, we are directly integrated. We have the scan, organize, and file tool that we talked about in Windows. And some of the other advantages that we're working in Windows, now you can publish to the archive from CaseWare and Engagement, but one project at a time. We could do batch publishing of tens of hundreds of thousands of files at a time. We can do a batch lockdown, which we call finalizing, or batch roll forward. We don't have to do them one by one. So there's a number of efficiency things that have been built into our work binder system, and this is a reason why we see a fairly solid adaptation by many of our clients to work in these environments versus working in CaseWare or FX Engagement. So I just thought we'd spend the first couple of minutes of, what is a binder? Why would we use it? When would we use it? What are some of the pros of using Doc.It's work binder system? And then what we actually want to do is get into our actual product demonstration of working with this software and getting in and getting it going. So I'm just going to stop here. I'm going to have to move the presentation a bit, so just bear with me for a second while I move things and get myself ready to flip over to my other monitor for presentation purposes. So I'll just have to take a little bit of a hiatus here while I move things around on my screens and get things organized. And now I need to change over to show my Doc.It system. All right. Between Paul and Kevin, could you please confirm that you are seeing my Doc.It system? Just a second here. I just want to get in, and that you can see my Doc.It system. Before we progress any further, if one of the two of you could please just throw that up in the chat. Very good, thank you. All right, here we have the Doc.It dashboard. Accessing the binders is done through the Binder Explorer. This was a major change in our Suite 4 that we brought the Binder Explorer into being. The Binder Explorer, we like to use the expression, is really the gateway to all binders. Now, when we mention binders, you may not think of it this way. Inboxes are really a binder. If we look at the contents of an inbox, there is folders, even if it's only one folder. There are files, and there's a previewer. And if we go to think of the archive, it has folders, it has files, a document area, and it has a preview. If we go into a work binder, it has the same elements, and really there's a fourth type of binder, and that is a template. So we can access all of those binders from this one interface here in our Binder Explorer. The Binder Explorer, we can access either information about a client, so here I'm circling a client base, or we could be doing a save search, which is, it's actually a query to extract information about binders, and based on given criteria, bring us back a selection of binders. So for example, I could see all the archive and the work binders. I could just see archive binders. I could see all of the inboxes. We also can create searches for workflow purposes. But these are defined searches that are not client-based, whereas here I'm saying, bring me everything about a client. So I'm just going to do a little client-based search here. I'm going to type in the name of a client, Susan Engel. And what we will see, what we'll have available to us is we have the client inbox. We have an archive. Now, for each client, when we do a client-based search, there's a client inbox. There's an archive. We're not going to focus on the archive today, but that's where all of our finalized documents, whether that be correspondence, whether that be project-related elements. This is our secured lockdown facility where we will access a fully bookmarked PDF of our completed projects. But that's not our focus today. We have here a work binder. We can have in here CaseWare binders, or in this case, an FX Engagement binder. Our focus today, though, is going to be to focus on work binders. Now, one of the types of binders that we have, we're going to focus just at first on templates. And accessing the templates is via the Save Searches. Now, not all of you may have access to the templates, because this is controlled by functional security. There is a functional security definition to allow access to the templates. Now, that is to modify or to add a new template or to delete a template. It is not to copy a template. You can always copy a template, but in order to have access to add, delete, or modify templates, you have to have a specific right in the functional security, which we find under the maintenance menu. So I'm going to just click in, and here are my templates. Lots of different templates. I can have my inbox template. This is the template that everybody's inbox is controlled by. It may just be a singular folder, and that's all that it would look like. I just double-click to open up the template. Here would be my archive template, so I have one for internal purposes. And then I have a number of work binder templates. I'm just going to double-click on one just to see an example. Double-clicking on the Canadian personal tax, and this is a template. And this template is made up of folders. There are no files attached to, but theoretically there could be, and a preview if any of those files are PDFs. So it's a binder. It's a series of folders and subfolders. And each template is different. It's going to have a different structure. So I'm just going to go back, and maybe I'm going to go look at what a valuation template may look like. And yeah, I know I got some restrictive things in here. And my valuation template is different. It's very, very different folders. But if I went to do a valuation, I wouldn't have to create these folders every time. I would want to use my template and create this from my template. So with templates, we have one of a couple of options when we want to create a template. I can create a template from scratch. If I went in under binder, I could say I want to add a binder template. Now what add a binder template is that is going to create a blank, no folders. So if I went now and I wanted to add a binder template, it's going to ask me what I want to call it. Let's just say I'm going to call it test because I want to just create one so that you can see it. It's going to create it at the bottom of my list. It will create with nothing, no folders, no subfolders. I can always, up on my control here, add a new folder. Now what a new folder does, it adds a subfolder. So if I'm clicking on the root and I add a folder, and I'm just going to call this pending, what it's going to do is it's going to create a subfolder. If I want to create another folder at the same level as pending, I'm just going to hit here to add, and maybe I'm going to call this correspondence. We can always add subfolders to any folder by clicking on the folder and adding a new folder. We have the ability to take folders and we can move them up or down in our structure. So here are the controls. I can move them up and down, so I can manipulate. So we can create a template right from scratch. And if I had a template, maybe I wanted to have 15 folders in it, I could probably create that template in about 10 minutes. Very, very simple to create a template. Now what I would suggest you do is if we right-click, yes, I can add a folder. I could rename. It's usually good. That name root isn't going to do anything, so maybe I'm just going to call this a test binder, which isn't a very meaningful name, but just for lack of purpose. It's good to rename that so at least when we go in, it'll always tell us up here the internal client. This internal client houses the templates. That is the name of the specific binder. So the specific binder's name there is test. So I can right-click and I can delete folders. I can rename folders. We're not going to get into folder security, but technically you can control access to folders as to whether there's a deny ability, which means people cannot see what is in that folder and subfolder. You can deny access via security. You can deny access right to the whole template such that somebody wouldn't be able to use one. We can define folders to roll forward, which means everything in that folder is going to copy ahead to next year. So we give some tools and move up, move down, which are also up here. So just some tools that we need to be able to create a template. Now that's creating from scratch. What I could have done is I could have taken a given template, and rather than create from scratch, I might want to copy this template. Now do not use add a binder from template, because that is actually taking a template and creating a work binder and not a templated work binder. If you want to copy this so that you can create a new template, go to copy binder. It's a common little error just because it's when we're actually working and we want to create a new binder, we're going to add it from a template. But in this case, if I wanted to build another one, I could copy. And what it would do is it builds me exactly what's in my template, and I'm able to take that and manipulate it, change it as I may want to do, and it will help me to build a new template. And sometimes it's faster to actually build from another template than it is to create one from scratch, especially if it's something that's pretty similar and we only want to change it slightly. Now, once I've built a template, so I can have a template here, and what will happen is people will be able to, while they're working, copy this template. And they'll be able to copy this template, and they'll go out and they'll use then a copy of this template when they're working. We can always come back into a template and change it. So I may have made 100 copies. There's 100 binders out there that have utilized this template, Personal Tax US. And if I was to come back to the template and make changes, those changes will be replicated to all of the live binders. That's a change from version 3, but in version 4, they will be replicated. So if for some reason we decide, maybe during tax season or early part of tax season, we go, gee, I really need another folder, I could go put another folder in here, and it will become a folder in all of my live binders. So it auto-replicates it into all the live binders. If I rename, so maybe there was a spelling mistake, I want to rename something, it'll rename it in all of my binders. Well, also what happens is, if I want to delete it, it's going to delete it into all of my binders. And here's where we have to put a little caveat in place. It will only allow to delete a folder if not one of the live binders using this template has a document. So if there's a document in this folder, in any of those 100 that I was speaking of, any of those ones that we've created from the template, it will not allow us to delete the folder out of the template, because it's going to delete that out of all the live binders. And we've got a binder out there with a document in that folder, and we don't want that document going to Never Never Land. Now, if I went and I removed that document out of that folder, I could come back in and delete it out of my template. But we have to be restrictive. If we're going to allow you to add and it changes all, rename and it changes all, well, if we're deleting and it changes all, we have to protect a little bit, because there might be a document in at least one client in that folder, and we then can't let you delete it. So it's just a little something that we have that's out there, that so you can manipulate these, and you will be changing your live folders. And that's quite nice, because in the past, if we didn't quite get our binder templates 100% correct, we made a little change, then we were a little bit suspect that we might have to go back and change it in 100 or 500 or 1,000 binders, however many we copied it from. So that was templates. I'm just going to go back into, oops, it came right out of my binders. I didn't want to. Let's now go out for a client. Let's actually utilize one of these templates, and let's go create a live project. In order to create a binder from a template, we're going to use this icon here, which is the plus. The plus is always add. It's a book. It's a template. I'm going to add it from binder, and it's going to have highlighted this one client. I could highlight multiple clients by using my control key, and I could be doing this for multiple clients. In this case, I'm just going to be doing it for the one. I can select a template. So let's say I was going to use personal tax. I just started to type the name, Personal Tax US. Our best practice is to put a year that it relates to in the front of the binder, because I will have a container for 2014, 2015, 2016, and I want those binders to have a unique name. If we're using workflow, it could involve time. And then binder year. Now, the binder year defaults to the current year. This is a tag that is put on the binder for searching purposes. We can always search in binders that are for a given year. We can write save searches and have it come up just for specific years. So it's a meta tag that's available to us for searching purposes. It's a tag that we'll put onto the binder so that we can search on it. If I wanted to pick this for a different year, maybe I was creating a 2013. Let's make these two the same. But it'll default to the current year. So you just have to be careful. Come January 1, it's going to start to say 2015. And if I'm going back creating a 2014, I can type it or I can go for it. I'm going to add the binder, and it's created that project binder. And this project binder is based on the personal tax template. Okay? Now, rather than have to create this each time, when I want to start my project, I can go and use the template. It's very, very fast to create it. Now, this is typical of what we would do in year 1 with something like personal tax. This is what we would have to do every time we did a one-off consulting project. We'd have to go create it from template. But more often than not, in repetitive projects that happen year after year, we're going to roll these projects forward at the end, and the roll forward process will auto-create our binder for next year, and we'll copy documents defined as roll forward documents ahead to the subsequent year's binder. So we don't really have to go through and create those binders year after year after year. Utilizing the roll forward will allow us to auto-create those binders. So within our binders, the main two things we use our binders for is gathering documents, processing documents. Now, gathering documents, we can gather from multiple sources. We could be gathering from Windows. Now, I'm going to be doing some drag and drop here. Drag and drop is a little bit of a pain if we're working off of one monitor. So it's one of those that's going to be a little bit difficult. It's great to do drag and drop when you're on multiple monitors because I can be dragging from one place to another. When I'm on one monitor, if I'm on a full screen, I'm only going to be seeing one element in the foreground of my screen, and I need to see two elements, where I'm dragging from and where I'm dragging to. When I want to drag and drop from anywhere into a binder, best practice is pick the folder that you want to drag it to. So if I wanted to put something into the correspondence folder, the first thing I do is I click on the folder I want to put it in. I'm then going to go out to Windows. In this case, I've got a folder out here that's got a bunch of documents. And let me just move this a little bit. And I've got here an Excel spreadsheet. And if I wanted to take a document and I wanted to bring it in, wherever that document may be, I can take this file and I can drag it. Now I'm going to hold my left mouse button down. You drag it here into the document area where our documents will sit. Now, if I release this, it will take this file here from Windows and it will move that file into my project. Now, if I would have wanted to copy that file, I can drag back out to Windows. It's a move function within Windows. So when I'm going to Windows, I'm coming from Windows, the move function. If you use your control key, so I'm still holding my left mouse button down. If I hit my control key, see a little plus where my arrow is? There's a little plus. Maybe I'll make it a little more visible. There it is. It's made a plus. If I now release my mouse, what it will do is it'll take that file, it'll copy that file here. And let me just do that again. And oh, it's already done it. Sorry, it must be down the end bottom of the list. What it'll do is it'll take that file and it'll have copied that file. It's down here at the bottom. It'll take that file, it'll have copied it here into Windows or from Windows. So if I'm coming in from Windows, I want to bring a document. If I take this and I press my control key, release my mouse first, and then you'll see that the document is here and the document is here. So I can, from Windows, I can copy. If I just straight drag and release my mouse, it is a move. I can also go in and I can browse to Windows. So this is a browse to window function, and I'm here now, say in my I'm in my desktop. I could go wherever I wanted to go to get files anywhere here on my network, and I take a file, and all I need to do is I can just double-click on it, and it is a copy. So when I browse out to Windows, it went and it copied that file. So here I have a PDF, here I have an Excel spreadsheet, here I have a Word document. So in order to gather from Windows, I can drag and drop from and to Windows, utilizing my control key in order to make that a copy, or I can browse to Windows. Now we have similar functionalities when we're coming from Outlook. So I can take a file from Outlook, and I can take this file, and again, I have to drag it to that document area. So I'm going to take this file, I'll drag it to the document area. I will let you know that drag and drop to Windows, to the work binder, it's not really fast. It takes a few seconds. This is the first time that I'm doing it. I'm working in a virtual machine, so it hasn't filled the cache memory. It would do it faster the second time. But it's taken that and it brought that email in. And with the email, there is a message file. If I double-click, it'll launch the message file out of Outlook. And the Excel spreadsheet that was an attachment has come in as a separate file. And if I want, I can rename it. I can do what I want. So we have a drag and drop from Outlook. That is a copy function. So if I went back into my Outlook, that email is still where it was. It doesn't move it. It stays where it is. And it is a straight copy function from Outlook in. But the attachments come in as a separate file. So would it be 5 attachments? I'd have 5 separate files. I could move those where I want. I could, deal what I want to do with those specific files. So coming in from Outlook, it's a drag and drop, and I can gather files very easily here. if I was coming in from my inbox. So let me just get this over here. From my inbox, get that down to partial. So here's my inbox open. I can take files from my inbox. Yeah, sure, I didn't get that down. Files from my inbox. So if I wanted to take this file here, and let's say I wanted to put this into a page right here, I would just take my page. I've clicked on the folder that I wanted to go into, so I clicked on capital gains. I'm going to take it, I'm going to drag it here, and it's brought that file in. It's taken the file, and it's deleted out of my inbox. Why? I put it into my document manager. It was in my temporary repository. It's now my document manager. So we can drag and drop documents very easily to from my inbox. I can also go browse and add files from my inbox. So I could browse out and browse and gather files. So I could drag and drop into my work binder, or I can browse to my work binder. I'm just going to take this document. I'm going to put it back, a copy of it back in the inbox, because I use that file pretty regularly. Now, the other place where we can add files is we can add files from our integrated web portal. So Doc.It's web portal is fully integrated not only to a work binder, to my inbox, as well as to the archive, but I can always right-click and I can add a document from the web portal. Now, it knows which client's project I'm in. I'm in Susan Engel's project, so what does it do? It opens Susan Engel's portal. And I could take a document from there. Maybe the client has said something to me, and I'm going to go grab this file. And when I hit add, it brings that file into my project. So I can also take files here, and if I was to right-click, I could send this document to the web portal. And it's going to copy it to the web portal. And again, I could put it wherever I wanted in the portal. So we're integrating into our work binder system directly from our web portal. So it's very fast. If clients are using the web portal, we can extract files in very simply. We can send client documents to them very simply right from our project, and it's directly integrated. So that gathering function, which is important because we always have to gather, but we really don't make a lot of money on gathering. We always have to gather. We want to ensure we can do that as quickly as possible. Now, we don't just gather files. We also process them. So what are some of the tools that we have that are here to help us when we're processing? Obviously, I can't show you everything. I'm going to touch on a number of things across the next 15 minutes before we get ourselves back to the questions and answer. One of the things that we do have, we said we had that sort, organize, and file tool for tax, especially, or one of the places you can really use it is scanning of tax documents. So maybe we get that shoebox from our client. There could be 100 different documents in there. What we're able to do is we're able to scan those documents in, and Doc.It has a system called the Advanced Forms Recognition System. And the Advanced Forms Recognition System, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go out to my inbox, and I'm going to grab a file, and I'm going to use the Advanced Forms Recognition on that file. And what's going to happen is it's going to go through that file, and it's going to preview all of the documents, and it's going to see whether it could recognize them or not. So it's gone through the 10 pages that were in my file. The first page it couldn't recognize because it was handwritten notes. Well, there's a W-2. It recognized a 1098, different types of 1098s. These are U.S. tax forms for those of you in Canada. And I think I have some Canadian charitable donation receipts here just to give a good international flavor. Now, it was able to recognize these. And if we had a 100-page file, it could recognize all 100 of them. We have means of detecting forms that are not easily recognizable, like automobile expenses, child care expenses, charitable donation receipts, medical receipts, because these are not easily identifiable forms that don't have consistent text on them. So we really can't compare the text on this form to the text in a library of forms in order to come up with our recognition. But we utilize something called separators, and those separators make it possible for us to know what forms are. And here was a separator being used. It's being detected. The system then knew that these were charitable donations and has named them accordingly. So we're able to detect our forms. Just a little hint for those of you who may be familiar with the AFR. This preview can take up some time, especially if it's got to go through maybe 100 pages. There is something, if we go into the maintenance, I'm just going to go off to maintenance for a second. In maintenance, My maintenance is already open. Just a second here. Let's get rid of this. Maintenance is already open. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Oh, you can't get into maintenance, so this is open. Inside maintenance, that was why it wasn't opening. In maintenance, under firm-wide settings, there is the ability to turn this preview off. And what it does is it stops the system from going through here and recognizing everything. And what you're able to do is you're able to just straight go from run the AFR. This screen comes up, you click on start, and it puts things away without it going through and doing a preview of all of your AFR documents. And once you've gotten familiar with the forms recognition, and once you know that your forms recognition is working, reasonably, you can turn that preview off and just go straight from scanning to I want you to recognize and put those documents away. And what it's going to do is it's going to save time. And it might cut a third of the time off of the processing of an AFR file. Now, in our September 30th release that we showcased last month, there was an enhancement made in the background to ensure that we get some enhanced recognition. There were some issues found during last year's tax season. The documents were having difficulty being recognized, and we did make some enhancements into the system to ensure that we do get better recognition, and we will continue to enhance and improve based on feedback we get from our clients. But those, some of the common situations we had last year, those were dealt with in the release of September 30th. So this advanced forms recognition into the wages, my W-2 has gone away, has been put away into, let me just make this full screen so it's easier to see. Interest and dividends, there's a 1099 dividend, a 1099 interest. Into deductions, there's 1098 mortgage and a 1098C, and my charitable donations. The system was able to recognize, name, and put those forms away for me. Now that becomes quite helpful when we have a lot of slips, and it's not uncommon, including things like charitable donations and medical receipts, and that we could get 50, 100 different tax documents, especially as we get into brokerage statements or in the States with K-1s or financial statements that we might get in Canada to represent different types of income that they're involved in. It's very, very fast. It's very efficient, and the system should be achieving recognition rates in the mid to high 90%. So if you were to put 100 pages in, it's quite conceivable that 95 pages or more may be recognized. And we have a way of dealing with that one unrecognized page. It got put into the unrecognized pages. Now what I want to do with that, here's a new little hint that some of you may not be aware of. If you want to just rename a document, you don't have to go up to the pencil or right-click and go to Rename Document. F2, Function 2, is a shortcut to allow you to rename a file. So if you ever want to rename a file, you can hit Function key 2, and it'll always bring up the rename. And that's if you're in the inbox or if you're in here in a work binder. So I'm not going to go any further with the AFR except to show that we can take documents, we can bring them in, we can rename them. I can take files and I can drag them. Maybe I'm going to rename this. I'm going to drag it somewhere where it needs to go. I just drag it to the folder I want it to be in, and there you're seeing that document that I just took and I just dragged. Now, I would have renamed and give that a better name, but in this instance, I just wanted to show you I can just drag and drop it and put it where I need it to be. Now, working in a work binder, if I double-click, it's going to launch this page. I can launch multiple documents within the PDF editor. This is just a single document got launched. But in this case, if I wanted to launch all three of these documents, I can highlight my documents using my Control key or Control-Shift if I'm doing a whole series in a row. And I can just go up here to this Checkout Documents. When I've highlighted my multiple documents, I'm going to click on my Checkout Documents. And now it's not going to just load one PDF into the editor. It's going to load all three of those items into the editor. And if I wanted to, I could have, let me just close this down, I could have said right-click, I want you to show me all the documents in this project. I could have sorted by PDF. I could go from the first one to the last one. And I could open all of those in an instance of the PDF editor. And I'm now going to have all of those documents available to me here in this PDF editor, and I can work on all of those files. Now that one file, the organizer, it was 50 pages long. And I've just come along now, and I've opened up all of those documents into my PDF editor. They're all available to me, and I can be working on these documents. So we can have one document open in the editor. We can have multiple documents open in the editor. I'm just going to come back here. And let me just come back here. I want to just take one of these documents, and I want to close it. There was my organizer. So I have multiple documents open right now in my PDF editor. You can see that those documents are checked out to me. Now what we can also do, and this is something that happens oftentimes in the States, is not only can I have multiple instances open, multiple documents open, I can also open multiple instances of the PDF editor. So I'm going to take this, I'm just going to right-click, and I'm going to say, check this document out in a new editor. And what I'll have is I'll have now two instances of the PDF editor open. I have the first one open where I had all of those multiple documents, and I have my organizer. And what I could do is I could take this organizer, and I could tear it, and I can move it around in my screen real estate. And I could take this one. I'm only on one monitor, so I can't really do this too much. But if I have multiple monitors, what you can do is you can always go and open up your organizer and put it over on the one monitor, and I could be working my way through it as I work my way through my tax documents. So those tax slips that I've scanned in and my organizer I can have open in multiple instances, because my organizer I'm going to probably want to work through the whole 50-page or 70 or 80-page file. I'm going to work through that file as I go through my various tax documents. I'm not going to work on it. I'm not going to show you what we can do with the PDF editor, because that's PDF editor, what tools we can use. And as I close these down, it will release each of these files, and these files are no longer locked up by me. So I can have multiple instances of the PDF opener. I can have, I got lots of availability. I can move things around. As I could have multiple instances of the PDF editor open, I could have multiple binders open. So if I wanted, I could open up this other work binder. And here I have open their bookkeeping binder, and I have open their personal tax binder. And if I want, I can take this binder and I can tear it off, and I can move it around in my screen real estate. And I can open up their archive. If I wanted to open up their archive because I wanted to see last year's project, I could open up last year's project and, again, tear this off and put it over onto some other screen real estate. So I can be working on this year and see everything that there was with respect to last year. Let me just put these back up. Now, I don't have to just have projects open for this client. If I wanted, I could navigate to another client and open up projects there. One of the nice things of having multiple projects open, if I have this project and I tear it here and I have this project here, I can always take a document. I can always take a document here from here. Let me just say I got a document here. And if I wanted to, and maybe I've got rental income here. Let me just get on the right folder. I can copy files from one to another. Now, if I drag and drop, it's a move. If I want to copy, I hit my Control key and see how the little plus is there. I release my mouse and I release my other, and I've copied the file. I don't want to delete it because I did a copy. I can copy from one binder to another binder. If I wanted to move it from one binder to another, I can straight drag it. Now, not only can we go between binders, but I can also have a CaseWare binder open, and here is a CaseWare project. And did I just get that up there? I can take this file, and I need to move this. Let me do this. Can I grab it? Yeah, there we go. I was getting it caught behind that. I was getting it caught here behind. I can always take files, and I can drag them from a work binder, and I can put that file into a CaseWare project. So I have a CaseWare project open. I'm just holding my mouse down, and I took that file, and it's copied it in. There it is there. There's that rental income. And in this instance, I'm not going to delete it. I could delete it from here if I wanted, but I could delete it, and in essence would be a move. But there it is. I've taken that file, and I've copied that file into an open CaseWare project. And you can't copy back. I tested that. I don't know if that is a feature. I don't know if that's a bug. But I can copy back and forth. So it's really nice. I could be copying from a work binder into CaseWare. Where that could be really handy is there is something called a client inbox. Client inbox can be used as a temporary holding place You don't have a project open yet in CaseWare, or the same thing for FX engagement. I can drag and drop from a binder to FX engagement. I can have documents in my client inbox, and then when I open up my project here, either in CaseWare or in FX engagement, I can drag them out of my client inbox into my CaseWare or into my FX engagement. So if you're using this just as a bit of a client's temporary holding place, because you've gathered some documents that you know are going to be needed in future projects, one thing that you can do is you can take them and you can put them there and then just store them there temporarily. So I can have projects open. I could be having my archive open from last year. I could have projects that relate to other clients. I can always tell what I'm looking at. There's the client. There's the project. There's the client. It's the archive. There's the client. It's the project. So I can always see those various elements there. So lots of tools that we need in order to go between files, to see what happened last year in the archive. We have a full note system that we can utilize, and we could have notes at different levels. We can make just notes. Maybe I'm going to make a little note to myself while I'm working. There's something I haven't been able to finish on this file. I want to make a little note to myself. We have document notes, which will be visible as to how many notes there are here. Maybe I'll go to this file because there's more. I could go in. I'm just going to add a little note over here. It's going to add a document note. Let's just call this test. So I can add a note, and when I add a note, it's visible here that there's a note. I want to see it. I just click on the notes, and I'll be able to see it. So this is tied specifically to a document. Here I can have notes that are tied to the project. Those project notes are visible here in the Binder Explorer. So if I have notes here and I want to see the note, I can click here, and this is relating at the project level. So here's a note at the project level. I could also have client notes. So maybe there's a specific note that I want to enter, and I want this note to be for my client. And maybe the only person you can talk to is the VP of Finance. You're not allowed to talk to anybody else in the company. I could put a client note in such that they would see that note for every client. If I have a project-specific note, I could put a note in. Now, one of the things we could do is we can flag a note to copy. And a note to copy means it has multiple meanings, but one of which is when you roll this binder forward, it'll copy the note ahead to next year. So if there's something specific to bookkeeping that we need this note every year, I can say flag that note, and when we do the roll forward, it'll copy that note ahead, and that binder note will exist. So, our note system is good. You can use it for notes to yourself. You can use it for review purposes. There's some controls on who can delete notes in our functional security. So it gives us some pretty strong tools of what we need for note capabilities. One of the last things, when I'm working on a file, we do have the ability to mark a file as being prepared or reviewed. Where these can be set up, you can create whatever ones you want. We used to have check boxes in version 3.3. And maintenance, under document categories, you can create a document states. You can create different states. And there's a little checkbox for show on the menu. And if you check that off, they'll be available here. And you can say, a document is prepared, it's reviewed. Sometimes certain things need a second review. You could create another document state, and it would be available to be utilized. If we do mark something off here, so I've said that this document is prepared, if I right-click, we can always see the state history, which will tell us the history of this file. It'll tell you who marked it as being prepared and when. And then if it was to be marked as reviewed, it would do the same thing, and I would have both, who marked it as prepared, who marked it as reviewed. So, we'll have that audit trail history there of all the documents. Now, we've pretty much run out of time. I just wanted to mention that we do have capabilities from these binders to batch publish, which means I could take, 1,000 personal tax returns, and I could publish those to the archive, which goes through and batch prints every document in here and creates a fully bookmarked PDF, puts our file away for us in the archive. But we could do that in batches. You just have to be a little bit careful because naming conventions is what we always have when we archive things. You will have one name applied to the entire batch. So if I'm going to be putting away a batch of 2013 tax returns and there's one 2012, that 2012 has to be in a separate batch just because it's going to have a different name, because generally our naming conventions include an element of the year, and because it's going to have a different year than the other, we have to put it in a separate batch. But we do have the ability to batch publish, and publishing is a whole other topic that we won't get into, but there is the concept. We can batch publish, we can batch finalize to shut these projects down, and we can batch roll forward to create next year's projects. The only thing with roll forward is if I have a file, so let me find one here. I've got this Excel spreadsheet. If I need this file next year, I can right-click, and I can mark that file to roll forward. And when we open up next year's project, that file will automatically be copied ahead to next year's project. So it's just a good little tool that we have to allow us to roll forward files, roll forward all files in a folder, 2 different designations that we can have. Obviously, I wouldn't want to roll forward everything because in personal tax, I don't want to roll forward their wage slips and their charitable donations. I'm going to get new ones next year. But I may have some important spreadsheets that we do every year for this client. I want to copy it forward so it's automatically there for me when I start next year's project. So this is about where we want to stop. I really haven't had a chance to look at the questions. It's kind of hard to do as we're going along. And Paul, I would ask if you could make yourself available for us on the presentation. I'll just wait because your phone is muted.
Hi Don. Okay, I'm here. Yeah, we have a few questions that have come in. So one of the questions was somebody was asking about when we roll forward a binder, does it roll forward the template that created the binder, or does it roll forward the modified structure from the file being rolled forward?
All right, so what the issue is, we could have created from a template, but even when I'm in a binder, I may have added 1 extra folder, just to use it as an example. That's the scenario, correct, Paul?
That's the scenario as I read it.
Scenario, and I'll defer this question to you because of your knowledge. A little bit more, I don't know everything about everything. Surprise, surprise.
The answer to that is when it rolls forward a binder, it creates a new binder, and it attaches the new binder to the same template that the old binder was attached to. So if you've modified the structure of the template, then the new binder will have the modified structure as well.
But if I've modified the actual work binder, what happens? So let's say I'm in a work binder, and here I come along and I add a new folder. So here under Organizer and Support, I'm going to add a new folder. And I added that folder, and I call it Test. When it rolls forward, now I appreciate that if I've amended the template, because it copies the template, this was the actual live work binder. I added a folder. Will this folder roll forward to my new roll forward in the roll forward process?
If the folder is marked for roll forward, then yes.
So the folder itself has to be marked for roll forward?
Yeah.
So that would also copy all of the documents from that folder forward as well, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if the folder is marked to roll forward, if I wanted this folder again next year, I'd have to mark the folder. But what it will also do is copy ahead every document in that folder. That's part of what marking a document, a folder for roll forward does.
Right, but typically you would probably do it in the template so that you don't have to manage it for each and every, you know what I mean? You would do it at the template level. No,
very good, and agreed. You know, we want the general case is if folders are needed, you would add it to a template. There could be exceptional cases where they are added into a specific project. Our best practice is you should usually feed that back to your paperless committee, and that group should determine should that go into the template or not, and if so, that it would be added to the template. It becomes a non-issue for the future, and everyone would have access to that. Okay, go ahead, Paul. Another question?
Yep, there was another question about about placing emails into the archive. The question was about MSG files. Our archive, only allows for PDF files to be in it. And so what happens when you drag and drop from your email either into the Archive Explorer or into an archive binder, then that email, providing your email converter is running, that email will be converted into a PDF, and you'll be asked to specify the policy for placing that document in the archive.
So I'm just going to step back. We do have something here on the main menu called the email converter. Your email converter, you should ensure that for each user, the email converter is running. If you click on the email converter, actually I've got mine, there it is. Email converter comes up. I'm just going to stop mine. This is our standard definition. You should always make sure your email converter is set to auto start. What that means is every time you log into the Doc.It suite, it will auto start the converter. And then what you would do is you would hit start. Sorry, something else is interfering. It's my software here. There we go. And then if I hit start, what this means is when my system when I start my system, the email converter will auto start. If that email converter is started, it will ensure that if I take an email and I want to put it into the archive, a .msg file, it knows how to convert it. If I drag out of Outlook, it'll know how to convert it. So we should always have it. Anytime I'm dragging out of Outlook into even a work binder, the email converter needs to be running. So it's something you should just do. You kind of do it once and almost forget about it because it auto starts every time you start the software, and that is our best practice, to go in, turn that auto start checkbox on, hit start. You don't have to worry about it, and now you'll resolve potential issues with your email drag and drop and with putting documents into the archive that are emails. Okay, we have a minute for maybe one or two more questions, Paul.
Yep, we have one more. This one's a little more involved. The question was, do the binder templates still include a definition of publications as they did in version 3.6? So the answer is that the publication system is different in version 4, and it was changed so that we could do the batch publishing that you spoke of. So the way it works in version 4 is we set up our publication definitions, and then when it comes time to create the publications, we just simply choose which publication definition we want to operate on, and then we select when we're executing, we select which client binders to run against that publication definition.
Yep. So actually the definition, I'm under maintenance, publication definitions. The creating of a rule is actually pretty similar to what it was in version 3. We specify from our template, because we define these usually at a template level, we specify from our template what we want to print and what order we want it to print in. Much the same as we would do when we had it in the template defined in version 3. We also say what policy do we want to attach to it, which we did when we were in version 3. We said for the template, and then whenever we copied the template, that was automatically defined down at the binder level. Different here is we define the publication. We don't copy it down to the binder level, because when we go in off our main menu to create publications, we're going to now utilize one of our definitions. I say I want to utilize this definition. It shows me all of the binders that are out there that have utilized that template. Or if I go in here to personal tax, here's all the different personal tax ones. Now, I'm not going to get into it. The trickier part is deciding which ones we want to publish. It's made very simple if you utilize Doc.It's work binder system, or our workflow system, because one of our states of the project or stages of the project is going to be publish. If you're not using it, then you have to manually know, okay, how do I know which personal tax returns are done and which ones I want to, which ones do I want to publish? Because maybe in the States I've got a number of them on extension. I don't want to publish things on extension until they're physically done. So there's some decisions to be made, and there's some, you got to know which ones to publish, like we have to in any case, but it becomes even more important because I could have said I want to take 500 of those and publish them. I'm not going to go into publishing because it's a whole animal to itself. Okay, we're pretty much at the end of our time. We've run now for a full hour. Really do appreciate everyone coming today. If you want more information on the work binder system, please feel free to contact us. There is no cost to using work binders. It is a part of your software. There's some configuration. There's probably about, let me just see, 4 hours of configuration to set up the work binder system. End user training component is maybe about 3 hours, 2.5 to 3 hours of how to use it. And once those elements are set up, you're good to go. And you'll be able to start to run with your work binders. We could even share some best practices on template designs for about 12 different types of templates. So it's the type of thing, if you would be interested, you don't have to turn anything on. You don't have to install anything. Contact myself, contact Chuck Wilson, and we would be happy to get you going on work binder. Okay? So thank you very much for attending. As we had announced, we do have our next session on the 19th of November. We will be sending out invitations to that shortly, and we hope to see you all again. So thank you for your time, and we will catch up with you again next month when we will be looking at tips and tricks of working in version 4. Thanks, Paul. Really appreciate your help today, too, being online and answering the questions for us.
Thanks, everybody. I've still got a few more questions. I'll keep answering them.
Okay. I will stop the recording, and I will leave the session open. People can log out. What you may need to do, though, Paul, is get a report, and you might need to email them some of those answers because they won't see them once they've logged out. Okay?
I only have a couple. I'll get there soon, very soon.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.